Okay, we're rolling. So, welcome everyone to the first Zoom podcast for DGSCC. I am your host today, Assistant Coach Mike Farthing. And today I have current freshman at Iowa State and former DGS alum, Brenna Cohoon. Brenna, how are we this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Really good. Um, so I know I wanted to kind of start a little bit today, with not really any kind of specific questions, but maybe you can just talk a little bit about how things are going at Iowa State right now. Doesn't just have to be running, but we can talk about academics and trying to create a social life for yourself during this whole COVID situation. So, I don't know. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit just about how your transition's gone from high school to college?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Obviously with everything going on right now, it has not been a normal transition to college by any means. Um, but I think because of this, it's almost made my transition a little bit easier in some areas. Like most of my classes last semester, were online. So, I had the flexibility to work that into my schedule however that seemed best. Um, and I definitely, had to work around my practice time and like coordinating that with when I decided to do my homework and all that. So um, I think it was a little bit easier than I was originally anticipating just because I had all this free time and it was difficult to, figure out time management and everything at first. But once I got that down, I definitely had a lot of freedom. And in terms of running as well, the transition has gone really smoothly. I think what I did in high school formed a really good foundation for what I've been able to build off of in college so far. And yeah, I mean, we kind of hit all the bases in high school of obviously like building our physical strength, uh, working on our mental toughness. And so those are all things that you just continue to build off of in college. And it's been going really well so far. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I could imagine just, I mean, college, I think one of the biggest things that everyone tells you about is just you really learn how to time management. And the people who can do it well stay in college, and the people who don't, they go other ways or have to figure things out. But I can imagine though with COVID, I mean, you just don't have um, you don't have as many things going on outside of classes and practice. So, you know, not pushing off assignments till later and later and later. I mean, I could only like you have so much time on your hands.
exactly. Yes,
And I feel like that's um, kind of the same issue I'm running in with just the kids in high school right now. I mean, we were very fortunate to have a cross country season. Tennis and golf were able to have their seasons as well, but football and soccer got pushed, and now we're in winter, and basketball was about to start up, and then it didn't. And then even sports like bowling and gymnastics, which should reasonably be able to social distance and follow the guidelines. I mean, they just put the kibosh on everything. And so now so many kids have just been not, really able to do anything other than school. And I can see not having something else to do, whether you're in a club or sport or something, it's really hard to manage your time. And um, I don't know, it's made the situation definitely more difficult. That's for sure.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, obviously it wasn't a normal season by any means, but we
Hmm.
were still able to have team practices and a couple of meets in the fall. Um, so that definitely, helped me stay on track. I was able to form kind of a similar schedule to how I would do things in high school. Like I would treat the day in like in the morning, just like going through getting assignments done. Occasionally I would have Zoom meetings that I had to join live for my classes.
Hmm.
But for the most part, I was just doing work on my own time, and then I would go to practice, and then after practice, work on homework again in the evening. So
Sure.
I definitely having just the structure of having practice was so much more helpful with my
Yeah,
time management.
I'm sure. What was like the first few days for you on campus, or I guess like the first like couple of weeks, just getting to campus, and then then I mean, you started practice. Did you have practice for like a week or so before you started classes? Like, what did it kind of look like when you got on campus for the first time?
Yeah, so I moved in a week and a half before classes started.
Okay,
And once I got my negative COVID test results from moving in, I was able to meet with the girls. We didn't have an organized practice with our coach, but the group of us just met up. If we had a double, we would meet up for both runs, or we would do workouts together and everything. So that was really nice just to like slowly ease into
yeah.
collegiate training without a ton of pressure. And then the first day of classes was when we also had our first official practice with our coach and everything. So
Hmm.
that's kind of how that worked.
Yeah. Um, how was it like getting together with your teammates? I mean, I know you met some of them, or maybe most of them, when you made your different visits. But how is it like being able to just kind of build some relationships with your teammates? And again, now in college too, like was your coach is also the boys or the men's coach too? Are they separate? Are they the same at Iowa State?
So at Iowa State, our programs are separate.
Okay,
We have one director of cross country and track and field
okay,
who oversees both the men's and women's
gotcha.
programs. But we have one coach for specifically the women's distance team.
Okay. Um, so yeah, so I guess I go back to my question then. So how about just like building relationships with your teammates? I feel like, you guys are together at practice, and you want to get to know each other, but most of you guys are pretty mindful too of like, okay, we need to be, worrying a little bit about how much we're interacting together in close space. I mean, how is that just being able to kind of build some relationships with your teammates?
Yeah, it was really awesome. Like when you take your official visits to different schools, you can get a really good just general feeling for what the team is like,
Mhm.
but obviously you don't know what it's going to be like until you actually move in and step foot
Right.
on campus. Um, so it was great just getting to know everyone a little bit better day by day. Um, and I was able to be in contact with some of the girls throughout the summer, just like ask them a few questions here and there, and they were super helpful. So that I think helps break the ice a little bit. And outside of practice, we would sometimes meet up and like eat lunch together outside or
Hmm.
something like that, where we could be mindful of COVID and still be safe and socially distanced, but also just build up that good team bond.
Sure. How many freshmen are on your roster?
There are just two of us, so
Okay.
it's my roommate and me.
Okay. All right. Did you and I don't know what you're gonna say, but did you feel like intimidated at all at any point, at least like when you kind of got going with things, like finally being able to run with your teammates? I know your one teammate won conference. And I'm just thinking, you and your roommate, when you guys finally got to practice and you started running and doing the workouts, were you like intimidated at all? Were you like, man, like we're really moving during practice?
Yeah, that first week when we were just, we didn't have official practices yet.
Hmm.
The runs themselves were good, because just over quarantine and over the summer, I was able to pick up the pace a little bit on my runs, so it wouldn't be such a shock to the system
Sure.
once I got to campus. But my first two workouts were honestly a little rough. It was just a little bit different than high school, and I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. So, um, definitely surprised, and I went into the workout with a good mindset and everything. But
Hmm.
once I got going, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is college." So,
Can I
definitely
ask,
a
like, what kind of
little.
workouts were they? I mean, was it like tempo, or are you doing like intervals, or what do you
Yeah,
remember?
the first workout we did were intervals, but we did it based on minutes instead of mileage.
Okay.
And then the second workout we did was a fartlek on our cross country course.
Okay.
So both really fun workouts, but
Yeah.
definitely, got in my head a little bit. Got a little intimidated at first, but
Mhm.
um, I learned in working with my teammates, there was nothing to worry about. We're all just working together alongside each other, trying to improve each other and ourselves. So,
Sure.
yeah.
So talk to me a little bit just like about your season. You know, there were no spectators at any of your races, is that correct?
We were actually able to have spectators at our last two races.
Okay.
So it was just the first one that spectators weren't allowed.
Okay. All right. Um, maybe just talk to us because you had three races, right? You had two
Yes.
smaller meets, and then you had your conference meet. Um, maybe just talk to us a little bit just about your different races. I mean, what were your expectations, or what was your experience running your first college race, and then how did you adjust, maybe either physically or mentally throughout the season to get you know ready for conference?
Definitely. So the first meet of the season, we were at University of Kansas, and it was a really small meet between just us, Kansas, and Kansas State. And there were no spectators allowed at that one, so it was a little weird, like lining up at the starting line. You just saw like a couple coaches scattered throughout the course, but that was it. Um, so it was a little weird lining up, but I felt a lot of emotions. I was excited because it was my first college race. I was just grateful to be at the starting line again, since the last time we had been able to do that was like the middle of March. Um, so definitely, had a lot going on internally before that race, but once the gun went off, just stuck with our main pack, and just we would switch off leading here and there. um and if someone was feeling good, we'd let them go and do their thing. And it was just a really positive energy feeding off of each other. Because in high school there was a period of time where I would race with Melissa my freshman year.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like that, but it was just even on a bigger scale, because there were so many of us racing with each other. um, so definitely kind of like stripped things down back to the basics.
Hmm.
Um, tried not to get too overwhelmed, and was like, okay, it's just like a workout. We do these things together a few times a week. So um, it definitely, it was just weird to be racing again. And I I wasn't too overwhelmed by the fact that it was my first college race, which I think was good. Um, so I was overall, fairly pleased with how I did. It was a 5K, so um, I was able to compare a little bit based on the few 5Ks that I did in high school. Um, but I tried not to focus too much on that. I just wanted to head into college with a pretty blank slate, um, and not be comparing so much to all that I did in high school. Um, so yeah, the first race was just good, getting into the rhythm of things. And then our second race was at Oklahoma State, and that was a larger scale race. There were definitely many more teams, and spectators were allowed,
Hmm.
so it felt normal
Is that just
again.
because of the state's restrictions or whatnot, or was it just, or was that already how it was scheduled before?
I think it was already scheduled to be that way. I know spectators weren't allowed at Kansas just
Hmm.
because that was the university's policy.
Sure.
Um, so I'm not sure, what exactly happened. I think we had pretty strict testing guidelines
Sure.
before all of the races we went to. Um, so yeah, it was nice that it worked out in Oklahoma State where we were
Okay.
able to have spectators again. My family went down to watch, so that was really
Well, that's
fun.
yeah.
And yeah, that was my first 6K.
Okay.
Um, and it's a pretty hilly course. It's very it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's it was built for cross country.
Sure.
And they put a lot of money into that course, and you can tell. I mean, it's beautifully manicured. Um, and it felt really good running on it, but you
Mhm.
get up to those hills and it definitely caught up to you. Um, so that was a fun challenge for sure.
Would it be
And
comparable to like running a GRIAC in terms of just being hilly?
it wasn't as hilly as Griak.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not that hilly. But I did keep those Griak hills in the back of my mind though. I was like, if I
Yeah,
could do that,
because
this
they
is fine. So that helped a lot. Um, but yeah, I went into the race with kind of a similar mindset as the first race of the season. Just wanting to stay with the pack and push the girls as much as I could. And I did, get a little detached from the pack, a little past halfway, but focused in that last K just to get back up there, um, not worry too much. It was just a learning experience, which was the really great thing about all my races this season, since it didn't count for our eligibility. Um, so yeah, it was, I think, a little surprising in terms of the hills. I didn't mind the extra distance. I was really happy to be doing, even though it was just an extra K. That was really fun and it didn't feel much longer, which was good. Um, so yeah, I was kind of, it was fun to see, where we all stacked up in a larger field because the first meet was just 3 teams.
Mhm.
Um, so, as a team, we were really excited with what we did at OSU. And that was definitely what fueled us going forward into conference.
Now, was conference run at Oklahoma State too?
Conference was back at
Oh,
Kansas.
back at Kansas. Okay, so
Yep.
that was kind of nice too to kind of have a pre and post comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was nice too because the second time we ran at Kansas, it was a 6K. So
Hmm.
it was pretty different from the 5K course, but we still, had an idea of where things were. So it was nice being able to visualize going into conference,
Sure.
just have a good idea of where we can make certain moves and everything. Um, and yeah, I think um, I didn't really know what to expect going into
Hmm.
conference. It sort of felt like state, like even though you don't have to qualify for it,
Hmm.
um, just the level of competition and the energy surrounding the race reminded me a lot of high school state.
Sure.
So that was really exciting. I always loved our state meets. And I headed into the race with the mindset like I don't have any pressure to perform a certain way. I was happy with how I did all season, but I knew there's like a little more that I wanted to give. Um, so I went into the race without any like limiting expectations.
Sure.
Um, and just focused, starting out with the pack and as the race progressed, I was, checking in with my body and
Hmm.
things were feeling good. So I just, um, I don't know, everything just kind of came together that race, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Now, going into that race, like in high school, we had things like speed ratings that, were not the end all be all, but it was kind of a way to kind of see where you stacked up against the field. And actually, for the most part, it was actually fairly accurate in terms of just having an idea of where you probably should be, both individually and as a team. Like, I mean, did your team go into that race, I mean, knowing like that you were probably going to win, or um, I'm trying to think who finished runner up to you at conference.
I believe Texas was right behind
Okay,
us.
because I thought maybe too when I was kind of checking in that they were kind of close to you at least maybe through maybe the beginning part of the race, but then it was clearly evident as you got towards the latter half that your team was really just kind of pulling away from everyone. Um, so, like, did you know that you were going to maybe have an opportunity to finish that high up in the race? Like, where do you think you probably like where do you think you maybe this is a bad question, but like where do you think maybe you were supposed to be and then you ended up finishing really well in the race.
Yeah, I think heading into the race, we definitely had the team expectation that
Hmm.
we would do well. And we were ready to do what we did as an entire group.
Hmm.
So that definitely fed into my confidence. I knew that we had a lot of trust in each other as teammates. And so individually, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. It was kind of hard to gauge where I would end up based on the first two meets of the season, just because they were, different fields. I did race against some of the same people
Hmm.
in the first two races, but um, I had the goal like before the season even began. I was like, well, it'd be pretty cool to be all conference.
Hmm.
Um, and we would do workouts during the season where we would try to hit the pace that people who were all conference would typically run that pace in the
Okay.
race.
Yeah.
So we definitely had that race pace in mind while doing workouts. So I knew it was something I was capable of. I just had to put it together on race day. um but I don't even know.
I mean,
I
come on.
think
Were you
I've
like a little surprised or like, oh my gosh, I'm like way up here in the race?
Yeah, it was definitely surprising. I like starting out the race, our pack was all together towards the front. So I was like, okay, like this is a good spot. Like I'd be happy if I
Mm-hmm.
finished here. And just as the race progressed, I found myself like in the top 15 and the
Mm-hmm.
top 10. Um, and so in the moment, I was like trying not to freak out too much. Because I was like, if I overthink it, like I just, I need to stay focused and
Sure.
um, just be in the moment and not worry about any limiting factors. Um, so I definitely, I was kind of surprised while racing, but I was like, that's all right. Like, we just need to maintain this pace, maintain this positioning, try to move up as much as possible. And it was really nice getting to run alongside some teammates throughout and just check in with each other, push each other, and continue to motivate each other, which was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so exciting. I didn't get to watch any of it on TV, but I was just following it on my app, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, she finished eighth!" I'm like, "This is great." Oh, she's a top freshman too. I was like, "This is awesome." Think about that. Just during the fall or maybe the summer, I don't know. Maybe we ran into each other a few times, but like not even knowing, like if you're going to have a season, what was going to look
Right.
like, and even in the event that you only had three races over the year, which I know anyways in cross country in college, like there's not that many races to begin with.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
like, there's three races instead of like six or something like that. But just being able to like see that progress, and really like such a testament to you and your team just, staying motivated during the whole time, especially when you have so much time in between races. And then to finish as well as you guys did too at the meet. Second place wasn't really even close. Um, so I guess that brings me to the next question here. So it's been really kind of hard to follow exactly like what the situation is with cross country and track in college. The cross country championships are now in March. I
Yes,
think I
they're March
saw like
15th.
March 3rd or something like that. Like, so maybe you don't have the answers to all this, but what is your plan? What is your running plan here for like the next few months? Because cross country season kind of ended, but not really because there's other conferences now that are starting. Um, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but I guess there's no regionals at all. I thought I read.
Yes, at least that's my understanding of
Okay,
it.
at least
Yeah.
for now or whatever. But so how does that affect your team? You guys won conference. If you went to regionals, I'm assuming you guys would place well enough that maybe you would be invited, even as an at-large team. So, like, what are you guys doing right now to sort of just, I guess, obviously you're training, but kind of just stay ready for the championships? Are you guys going to the championships? I really have no idea how this is all unfolding this year exactly. So
Yeah,
tell me
no.
what you know. I'll stop talking. Tell me what you know.
Yeah, it's definitely confusing. one day I'll think that, it's going to look like one way, and then the next day we find out something completely different. So definitely having to be flexible with our mindset, leading up to the cross country championships. Um, the way that the national selection is working this year is, the conference meets have the largest weight.
Okay.
So I think, we won't be guaranteed a spot until those selections are announced.
Hmm.
But based on conference, we have a pretty good feeling that we'll be racing at nationals.
Okay.
Um, and then just leading up to that point, we'll be doing a few indoor meets. We have our first meet on January 23rd.
Yeah.
So that'll be a meet that we just kind of get in some quicker races for a little bit of
Hmm.
turnover. And then our next race after that will be a cross country race at Florida State.
Okay.
Um,
That's nice.
and
Warm weather.
yeah, yes, for sure. And that'll be a really fun meet because a ton of schools from all over the country are going there, because it's, I think, one of the only cross country meets that's happening before nationals.
Okay.
So it'll be really neat to see how we stack up against some of these other teams that we've never
Mhm.
raced against. Um, and yeah, it'll be a good way to sort of simulate a national race. Um, and then we'll have a few more indoor meets in between that meet at FSU and the cross country nationals on March 15th. So,
Okay.
and in that time period, we'll be doing more of like the 5K during the indoor
Sure.
season. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess that makes the most sense. I mean, if that's pretty close to what you're going to be racing, that's what you want to continue to train. I guess it's maybe unfortunate a little bit for some of your teammates, like if they kind of step up and do some of the, like the 10K, or maybe some of them drop down and do something shorter. But, when you're trying to balance, you know, cross country and kind of starting a track season at the same time, I guess, you're just, okay, 5K, let's just keep working at that, you know.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to eventually maybe move up in mileage at all? Do you like have ambitions of doing longer races, or do you feel like, the 5K is kind of like your sweet spot?
I definitely want to move up
Mhm.
to the 10K. I'm not sure when exactly that would be, if that would be this year or in the future, but I definitely want to focus on. I enjoy the 5K a lot, but I want to see what I can do in the 10K as well, and just make a little bit of a leap in mileage leading up to that.
Okay. Um, Maybe a couple other questions too, just like about training. What's um what's the mileage like for you, like in college compared to what we did at DGS? Is it about the same, a little more, a lot more? What would you say?
Um, it's a little more than what we did in high school. I think um, it's about like what we would do over the summer. Like we would have a week or two where we would hit like our peak mileage.
Sure.
It's just a little more than that, but we pretty much maintain that unless we're tapering for a race. Um, and the cool thing about, running in college is that our training plans are really individualized. So obviously we're doing the same workouts as each other and everything, but the mileage definitely varies. Some girls will put an extra mileage of work on a
Mhm.
workout day or do a longer warm up or cool down. So it's been nice that I've been able to just transition smoothly and not do too much too soon. My coach is really conscientious of that. So it's definitely, just having the mindset of like easing into things has
Mhm.
definitely made the transition smoother overall.
Yeah. No, that's good because I can't say that every program necessarily does that. I think um, because it always kind of baffles me that, like the women's race really isn't much further than what they're doing in high school. So why would you pour on so much more mileage? And I think it's good too that your coach is obviously keeping the bigger picture in mind. Yeah, he'd maybe like you to do more, but, you're not ready, and eventually, down the road you'll get there. Um, but I think the nice thing to it that I found too, even competing in college a little bit, is just like a little bit more maybe like differentiation. As you mentioned, like some teammates might do a longer warm up or a few more intervals or something. But those are the types of girls that can handle that mileage, where maybe you have some teammates that are like some of our some of the girls currently at school, where if they ran over 30 miles, like they fall apart or something, like, so that's kind of nice that your coach is just, keeping keeping things like in check and just having a bigger picture in mind. And obviously it's working well. I mean, you guys won conference this year, and I was looking at some of the Twitter posts too when you guys won. Like, I mean, you guys have been, Iowa State's had, a good program for a while in the Big 12. So, what your coach is doing is obviously working well, for you guys. Um, what would you say maybe is like the biggest difference between like running in high school and college? Um, I don't know, either race wise, training wise. What would you say?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference would just be training wise. The workouts that we do here are, we have a lot of similar workouts to what we would do in high school, but we usually have like a little less rest or do more intervals, um, or just do it at a different intensity.
Okay.
Um, and I've really enjoyed the workouts that we've done. Unless we're doing like a threshold workout. Most of our other workouts are obviously faster than that pace, but it's
Hmm.
not anything where we're really like reaching outside of ourselves and totally exerting all of our energy to do a workout. It's just focused on, progressing throughout the workout and getting faster, but keeping it really controlled and just using it, to get the work in that we need, not doing anything too crazy. And it ends up being a really good mental booster as well. So it's been the biggest transition, but I think it's something that ultimately has been really positive.
Hmm. Yeah, I found as a freshman, um, the amount of work and the different intensities in college, even as like someone running sprints. I mean, it was rough. It was rough at the beginning of training. I feel like there was a point actually where I felt like I got worse before I got better. I think just because,
Hmm.
body is just trying to acclimate to like this new stimulus, and maybe having to exert myself a little harder than what I did in high school, either because that's what I thought I needed to do, or the coach is really asking me to work a little bit harder. But yeah, I felt like once your body can kind of catch up a little bit with the training or with the strength training, or whatever else it is that the coach is having you do, I feel like then you kind of got to a point where then I felt like then I really saw the drops in times, and there was like some good steady progress for for a period of time. Um, I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a little bit. I know your major is journalism still, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had a chance to have any classes related to journalism? Like, are you taking all gen eds right now?
So yeah, it was kind of interesting. First semester, I actually had three journalism classes.
Hmm.
Um, and all of them were just focused on the overall idea of journalism. We didn't really put much of it into practice,
Okay.
just kind of stripping it down to the basics and learning about the principles of journalism, and just all the really important things that you need to know before
Sure.
you become a journalist. Um, but then this next semester will be just gen eds for me. So
Okay.
yeah, it was good to, have a little different experience in the fall, because I was able to be on the DGS
Hmm.
blueprint
Sure.
as a senior. But it was nice to just have a different perspective on journalism before I really got into it.
Hmm. Have you been? Now I saw you wrote something for Diestat. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you been doing any other writing, like just for yourself, or? I guess what have you done with just writing?
Yeah, I've been continuing to just, write on my own,
Mhm.
um, and I'm hoping to be a part of the Iowa State Daily, which is our newspaper.
Okay.
Um, I wanna, make sure it can work out with my schedule, obviously, racing wise. But I think now with COVID, and, just having less things in person, it would be a good time to transition into writing for the school newspaper.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, at this point, not writing a ton, but definitely, still working on it. And it was really fun to do that DieStat article just to
Yeah.
get another blog under my belt and just kind of see how it was, after so many months of not writing that style necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you hope to maybe do with journalism? I know you don't know where it might take you, but like what would your dream be with journalism? Like, are you the kind of person that wants to be, standing on the sidelines, like interviewing people as they're coming off the field, or, do you see yourself being in front of like a TV camera, and giving us the daily news? Like, what do you think you see for yourself?
Um, I definitely want to go into sports journalism.
Hmm.
At least that's where I'm headed right now. Um, and I haven't been able to learn a ton about like broadcast journalism necessarily.
Hmm.
Um, and because I love writing so much, I definitely think I want to focus on more the print side of things.
Sure.
Um, but I could see myself writing for like a sports magazine since I really enjoy doing like longer forms of journalism,
Hmm.
as opposed to like the short little like recap articles.
Sure.
Um, so it'll definitely be nice to kind of get my feet wet, through the different organizations we have at Iowa State and eventually getting an internship down the road.
Hmm.
But as of now, I want to focus more on the print side of things.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean that's why you're at school, right? To learn
Yes.
and get a degree and whatnot. But so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a little bit about academics. Um, I know maybe we touched on it just a bit at the beginning, but like you feel like the transition really has actually kind of been a little bit easier for you. Like, do you feel like the workload has been pretty easy to manage since you have maybe more time on your hands? And
Yeah, it definitely, there were times where I would have a lot of deadlines to meet all around the same time period. And if we were traveling for one of our meets, that could be a little overwhelming. But for the most part, I think it was more manageable than high school. Just the fact that you're not having every single class every day,
mm,
you're able to, spread it out over a longer period of time. And most of the assignments that I had, we would get assigned like Monday and then they'd be
mhm,
due like that Friday or the following Sunday or something.
sure,
Um, so definitely, I had to stay on top of those longer term deadlines. But once I got into the rhythm of things, it was nice to just check things off the list,
hmm,
and go along and then be able to ultimately enjoy my free time on the weekends. So,
yeah. Well, I know DGS is getting a little bit of a taste of that this year because they're doing sort of like block scheduling this
hmm
year with their classes, which I know they're doing it partially because of hybrid learning, but I guess also they're going to be transitioning to this maybe like permanently, like post COVID too. So it'll be good for kids to understand, like in college, if that's what you choose, that you're not going to class every day and, you know, you just got to figure out how to make the time for it. I remember that just being one of the harder things to do is, the teacher would just give you all this work. And I'm like, okay, I need to do a little bit today, a little bit, Wednesday, a little bit Friday. That was probably like the hardest part to really kind of keep track of. But the nice thing, at least I feel like in college, and maybe this is just me, I really did not have any like innovative professors or anything like that in my tenure. I mean, a lot of it freshman year was like, the psych class was like, well, we're going to have a test over chapters, 1, 2, and 3 next Friday. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to read chapters 1, 2, and 3 and,
yeah,
memorize
exactly.
some definitions, make some flashcards and take the test next Friday, So
Yes.
maybe not always as like many projects, although, you'll probably be doing that as you get further along with your major classes for sure. But I feel like at least in college, most of the professors try to keep things just like, simple and to the point, and here's what we're going to cover, and here's when the exam's going to be, and then it's just up to you to kind of chunk things out and get it done so that you're ready to go.
Yeah,
And just being
absolutely.
like nerve wracking a little bit too. Psychology, I only had 3 tests the whole semester, so I mean that was it, And if you wanted to redo anything, you couldn't. And if you wanted to retake the class, you had to pay another $500 or $600 to take it. So I mean,
Yeah.
that pressure though, I feel like is good though, because makes you definitely take things a little bit more seriously and understand that if you're gonna waste your time, then you're gonna be wasting your money. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
No, the workload itself was definitely easier, but it was strange just having like a couple tests the entire semester.
Hmm.
I took a psychology class and we had a test every single week. So
Yeah.
we didn't end up having like a cumulative final exam, which was nice.
Hmm.
Um, but some of my classes we just had like I think like one of my classes we just had like two exams the entire year. It was just the midterm and the final exam. Um, so thankfully, like our professors provided us with all of the content we needed to
Yeah.
prepare and do well on those.
Hmm.
Um, and it was nice just having so much extra free time to be able to study for those.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was definitely a bit of a transition. It seemed kind of nice at first because I was like, oh, I don't need to worry about any tests. But then
Hmm.
it definitely sneaks up on you a bit.
You're like, oh my god, the deadline's coming up like
Yes.
tomorrow. I need to start doing some work here for this. So yeah, that's one thing that I just really appreciate about college is this. I felt like I had a little bit more time in my hand, and really it was up to you to take the initiative to do it. And really, that's something that I wish just more kids in high school would understand. But I think when you go away to college, outside of the academic piece, the other things that it teaches you is like, well, if it's going to get done, I got to do it. And
Yep.
no one else is going to be like, hey, you didn't turn this in.
Right.
You are responsible for you, and you got to figure things out. So I'm trying to think, there was a couple other questions here that I had on my sheet here. um, I actually feel like I covered most of it. um, Here's a question for you, and I always like asking this. So um, we'll stick with the running part of it. But what if anything do you feel like that you took from your running career in high school, and it helped get you ready to run at the next level?
I think the biggest thing would be just having that positive racing mindset. That was something that I think just people in general in the running community are, realizing that that is such a big component of racing. Um, but it was something that all of our coaches at DGS emphasized. Um, and it really, helped with my transition to college a lot. Um, because I knew like I need to be, getting the physical aspects of it done and make sure I maintain that consistency. But almost more importantly, just focus on having a positive racing mindset. Like if a workout doesn't go well, you don't want to self sabotage and
Hmm.
start spiraling and worrying about how that's going to translate to your race. You just, stay positive and move forward. So, um, just constantly working on that mental toughness and knowing that it's something I can always improve on. I think that would probably be the biggest takeaway for what I have now in college.
Hmm. So, do you think? So what would be some like advice for? Do you feel like that would be some good advice for like high school runners as well? Is there anything else that you would like want to share with any kids running in high school? Like just, I guess, just some things that maybe just over the course of your running career that just like you realize that if you just focused on this, that you were just going to have better outcomes. So like, is there anything else you can think of other than just like having like a positive mindset?
Yeah, I think just in general, reminding yourself of why you love the sport is so
Mhm.
important. It's hard to do something well if you aren't excited by it, and aren't passionate about it. So I think just going back to the basics, this is something that I started doing like sophomore or junior year of high school. Was the pressure was on a little bit more than it had been my freshman year. So I started smiling in races, and it was something that made such a positive difference just because I was happy doing what I loved, and I was enjoying running, and that's the whole reason why we do it to begin with. So, and that was also something at conference this year. I was excited and I was smiling during that race. So I think that, just reminding yourself of why you do what you love, is really important. And you need to make sure that you don't put too much pressure on yourself, especially in high school. You'll have times later on in your running career where that pressure will be on, but I think you just need to enjoy it in high school and take it for what it is in high school.
Mm,
Um, because there are certain things that I'll never get back from my high school running experience.
sure.
Um, because as much as I love running in college, it's just
Mm,
different. So I think you just need to take it for what it is and not try to progress too quickly. Um, because I heard something, I think Allison and Olivia heard this from a running camp that they went to. Um, and it was just like this idea of not like not treating yourself like a professional runner in high school, which is
yeah.
something like a lot of people do. Like, um, in terms of, obviously you want to make sure you have good eating habits and good
Mhm.
sleeping habits and everything, but some people would just take things to the next level, and be so caught up in running being their entire life.
Mhm.
So that was something that definitely helped me. I was like, you know what? I have other aspects of my life to balance things out. Um, and if I decide and have the opportunity later in my life to be a professional
Mhm.
runner, like that's when I can worry more about those things. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's all a progression, no different than your training, but just, enjoying the sport. And, in high school, I mean, it's different. I mean, you're at school for 7 hours a day, and then you go to practice, and then you get home and it's 6 o'clock. Like that's a brutal schedule. Like when you think about, how many hours you're away from home and being able to do all that. And then, when you go to college, I mean, the academic rigor maybe increases, but then time management becomes, part of the equation. And maybe you do have a little bit more time per se to really kind of focus on your craft as a runner. And then obviously, if you go pro, I mean, it's your job. You're getting
Right.
paid to do it. You're not doing anything else during your day other than training. Um, you know, maybe you got to do interviews or write stuff. I don't know, but then that's why professionals can think and breathe running all the time, because that's what they do for a livelihood.
Exactly.
And and coaches like recognize that stuff too. I mean, you easily forget sometimes that your head coach was in the same position as you, as a high school runner and running in college, and they understand that whole progression, and they're not asking the world of you as a high school runner. It's just those that show the potential for growth later on are the ones that they want to represent their programs, and they hope to take you to the next level in college. And if it leads to professional career, great. If it doesn't, I mean, there's no replacing, the experience that you're going to have, competing in high school or college. And there's so much more than just, improving your times. I think about
Exactly.
even today, like I all my friends were from college. I mean, whether they were teammates or roommates or guys that girls that I had class with. I mean, that's just So I think keeping that in mind, that those are people that you're going to go back to and continue to, they're going to come to like your wedding or your graduations for your kids. I mean, like there's a much bigger picture to keep in mind as you're kind of navigating all this stuff, which, you're not thinking about as a college athlete, but me as, a father and married. I mean, like you thinking of back to these things, and it's just like, I'm glad that I had the experiences that I did running, and I just think that, like you said, you need to love it for what it is. You need to have fun with it, and that's just like what you need to keep in mind as your training. So
Absolutely.
yeah, um, I don't have any other questions for you. I don't think. I think I'm glad that I reached out to you. Like I said, you were number one on my list, and you've always represented DGS really well, and congratulations too with your conference race. It was uh, really exciting to see like how well that you ran and being newcomer of the year, and I hope that we see you guys selected for the championship race, and hopefully maybe I can watch you run on TV or something. I don't know if I actually see you. Maybe you'll be running in a pack somewhere. Maybe like, oh, there's Brenna. So, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on today and answering some questions. And I want to be able to share this with some of our current runners as well.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was so much fun.